One of the craziest things that came up in the Long Island serial killer case was the fact that the chief of police, James Burks, dismantled the task force looking into the Long Island serial killer and actually called off the FBI to be no longer part of that investigation. And when you start looking at the cops that were involved, the Suffolk County Police Department police officers who may have been involved intimately with Rex Heuermann, is it any wonder why they didn't want people investigating the Long Island serial killer? So let's take a look at some of the early indications that police officers themselves had a relationship with Rex Heuermann. Is that crazy? What is the fine line between police departments and serial killers? Now, before we begin, I want to make it clear again, I have no beef with law enforcement in general. However, I do have a problem with corrupt cops. When we're talking about this particular issue, we are focusing on potentially a very corrupt police department. And again, one could go back and say, well, that's a long time ago, devil's advocates. That's not the way things exist today. As certain people will have said recently, and I won't name their name at the moment, this is the same police department today that it was back then. Now, granted, some of the reports that we're going to look at today and deep dive into were reports from 30 years ago, 35 years ago, and therefore one could argue some of the police officers involved in this no longer are there, are retired, and so on. And we know that to be true. Having said that, systemically, is the same problem still existing? Do things that happened in the 1990s really just a relic of the past, or is this still what happens in this county? And again, I'm not calling out law enforcement in particular. What I'm saying is, let's take a look at police involvement in Rex Heuermann's case. Did police look the other way? And is there a reason? Because they were all figuratively and perhaps literally in bed with the Long Island serial killer. Now, what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna present three affidavits that I believe were given to John Ray, an attorney representing the family of Shannan Gilbert. As you know, the story of Long Island serial killer, Shannan Gilbert went missing in 2010. The family hired attorney John Ray in 2011 to look into the disappearance of their daughter, Shannan Gilbert, who was a sex worker on Long Island. It is believed, or they believed, that she may have been the victim of a serial killer in that area. And John Ray represented that family for quite a while and continues to march on in the justice or pursuit of truth. Shouldn't use justice. John Ray's been on my show recently talking about what is justice and can we get true justice. That's a side conversation you should check out on the interview with myself and John Ray. What I want to make sure is you're very, very clear that this today, what I'm going to share with you, the affidavits that I believe were given to John Ray, is not something that I have verified with John Ray. I'm not speaking on John Ray's behalf. I'm not verifying that these are in fact legal documents, but I believe them to be true. I got them from different sources. And so I'm going to share with you what I found. These are three affidavits, which I believe were given to John Ray. And again, I'm not trying to make any claim that this is John Ray putting his stamp of approval on it, because again, even though John Ray has been on an interview with me, that does not mean that this is cleared and sanctioned by John Ray. You got that cleared? Now, what is an affidavit? An affidavit is a legal statement made, sworn and notarized by a public notary, that the statement that you're giving, the affidavit that you're giving, is a statement of fact. It's stronger than just telling your story. So if these individuals had come to John Ray and told their story, for example, and it just all happened in a conversation on a phone or whatever, it's not as heavy as an affidavit. What an affidavit means is these people allegedly went to John Ray in a formal setting in front of a notary and said, I'm going to give this story as true and factual in front of a notary, and I'm going to sign my name to it, and I'm going to stamp to it. It gets some legal authority to it. So if they ever change their mind and say, oh, I never told John Ray that, well, he can pull out the affidavit signed before a public notary that, yes, indeed, you did say those things, and that's what your story was. Now, if you're changing it now for whatever reason, so be it. But I'm not telling a lie when I tell your story. An affidavit gives some legal basis, some grounds for that person to, if they decide to recant their story, to have some recourse against them. So it's a heavier thing to have an affidavit. Again, now, what does that mean in this case? All this means is John Ray, who's been looking for the pursuit of, what happened to Shannan Gilbert, and as a victim's advocate for the families, trying to get to that answer, he uncovered a few people who came to him to say, look, Rex Heuermann has ties to the Suffolk County Police Department and multiple police, and I think that's part of the reason why nobody's been real heavy to try to go find the Long Island serial killer, because they're literally in bed with this man. He's got a history of being involved with them again, at parties, sex parties, all these kind of things. And so we're going to read some of those affidavits from people who say, I know Rex Heuermann literally has relations with officers, and that's why they didn't look too hard into Rex Heuermann. So at the end of the day, what I want to say is this piece of information is for your information to try to dive into deeper into the corruption in law enforcement, if there is such a thing that even exists today. Does it exist today? Well, we'll take a look. Again, I'm going a little long-winded. Let's get right into the affidavits. I'm going to pull this up on screen. And again, I want to reiterate one more time. This is not verified 100% fact. I didn't check it with John Ray. None of this is approved by John Ray. This is just me going and finding these documents online that I believe, I have every reason to believe these are 100% legitimate. And the reason partly I have is because I've heard these statements made in documentaries about the Long Island serial killer. I've heard these stories before told on TV. All this is the actual affidavit, I believe, given to John Ray and notarized. Two of these will be actually notarized. You'll see the signature, you'll see the notary on it. And one of them will not. One of them, because it's a nice clean copy, doesn't actually have the stamp of a seal on it, but I have every reason to believe it's true. I heard the story on a documentary. It rings true. There's extra details here. But again, I have no reason to believe that these are not legitimate documents. So we're going to dive into it now. Now, on screen, as you can see, is an affidavit. The first one we're going to read. These are progressively interesting steps, in my opinion. We're going to go, it's going to be a little interesting on the first case. It's going to be a little bit more interesting in the next one. And it's going to be really interesting, in my opinion, on the last one. And that's how we're going to close, hopefully doing this at about 1 hour, as I typically do. This is an affidavit in the state of, why that's redacted, I don't know. In the county of, why that's redacted, I don't know. This person, being redacted for their safety and their privacy, being duly sworn, deposes and states that I am blank years old. So this person didn't want to have, and their date of birth is redacted because they didn't want people to get identifying information enough to be able to figure out who exactly it is. This is, again, I believe this is 100% a true affidavit, signed and sealed at the end of the document. However, we don't know who it is, and that's fine. But I have no reason to believe this isn't true. I once lived in Suffolk County, New York. I am giving this affidavit of my own free will. I am not under duress, nor coercion, nor the influence under influence of anyone. I contacted John Ray Esq by telephone on September 15th, 2023. I did so because I'm aware that John Ray has been representing the families of Shannon Gilbert. I trust him. I had seen him on TV, and I'm aware that John Ray has drafted the words in this affidavit. He has done so with my consent, at my discretion, after an extensive conversation I had with John Ray regarding that which is contained in this affidavit. The words herein accurately reflect my knowledge and information. I adopt the words in this affidavit as my own words. What does that mean for those out there in the legal type community? What it means is John Ray got a phone call from this individual. The person told their story. John Ray says, that's really interesting. Will you go on record of saying that that's what true and factual? Sure. John Ray maybe had a conversation recorded or whatever with their permission and said, you know what, I'll even draft the affidavit. This is what you told me. And after you read it over and you see that I captured it correctly, you'll sign your name to it, or you'll tell me no, it needs to be changed. So that's what happened. John Ray had this conversation with this individual, allegedly, according to this affidavit, put it in writing for that person, and that person signed their name saying, yes, John Ray accurately depicted the things that I told him. So that's what this is all saying. In and about October 2009, so yes, this is a while ago, I was a taxi driver in Suffolk County. Now, this is a female, by the way, giving this testimony, as we'll find out in the documents, but just keep that in mind. I was a taxi driver in Suffolk County, New York. I was employed as a taxi driver by Colonial and other companies at the time. I believe my employer was located in Sayville, New York. My employer's dispatcher directed me at the time to drive to a little off-road of Ocean Avenue in Ronkonkoma. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to New York. I'm going to get these pronunciations right. Ronkonkoma, I guess, to pick up a customer. This place was a bar not far from exit 59 of the Long Island Expressway. I was to have picked up a person named Matt. This person's going to pick up a person named Matt. Okay. When I arrived at the bar, I observed an extraordinary large man wearing an army-like fatigue jacket, crouching down on a very small street next to the bar where I had pulled up. He rose so that I observed his immense size. We know that Rex Heuermann is an immense human being. He's a very, very extremely large guy. So when this driver shows up, they see this immense dude who's going to turn out to be Rex Heuermann, they believe. He approached my cab. He appeared to be wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. His hair was more or less light colored, but not blonde. So if this was Matt, by the way, that he's picking up, this was a pseudonym that Rex Heuermann was using. All of these should be clues for those who are doing their own investigation. Is this Rex Heuermann? Is Rex Heuermann the one who's Matt that this driver is supposed to pick up? And watch what happens here. He appeared to be wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. His hair was more or less light colored, but not blonde. He was a white man. I had been told by my dispatcher that the place of destination for this customer, but I no longer can recall that location. So by the time this person gives the affidavit to John Ray, allegedly in this affidavit, she doesn't remember where exactly she was supposed to take him. Where exactly. So this large man approached my taxi to enter it. His words to me seemed arrogant. He entered into the rear of my taxi. He sat in the rear seat on the edge of the seat and in the middle of it. He said to me words to the effect of that we're going to go for a long ride in the woods, and indicated that we had to pick up a girl who was in a house across the street from the bar. My taxi was stopped very close to that house on a very narrow side street. I could see a white girl in a window in that house. I believe the window in the house is where I saw the girl was open. So again, she picks up this person. He says, we're going to pick up a girl and then we're going to go for a long drive out into the woods. Already, that's a creepy fucking scenario. I told the large man that I could not take him on this trip, that he had indicated that I had to clear it with my dispatcher. Smart for that person, not just going out into a long trip into the woods with some stranger. So they're going to clear it with their dispatcher. He argued with me. He said words to the effect of, are you being a smartass? As we argued, he said to me that he wanted to kill me if I would just give him a reason to do so. He insisted that he wanted to kill me. I heard him click a gun. While this occurred, I could hear my dispatcher yelling words to the effect of, you got a gun on my driver. I see you. I've got a call in to someone. So it sounds like there's a video for that driver's security in the taxi. And so they see and hear this Rex Heuermann individual, we believe, threatening to kill the driver of the taxi and having a gun, and it's caught on camera. So again, in this affidavit, do we know the name of the dispatcher? Has that been verified? We don't know. So let's just continue on with the story. As I said, words to the effect that I don't even know you. The large man had a sort of identification chain hanging on him, but I could not see the full ID. I asked him if he was a cop. So the driver sees what looks like a badge hanging around his neck, Rex Heuermann. Tip number one, Rex Heuermann seems to have friends that are officers. So if this is Rex Heuermann, is he wearing a police badge of some type? He has what looks like a badge around him. And I asked him, the driver asked him, are you a cop? And he said he was a cop. When I asked him where he was a cop, he replied, Brooklyn. Now, I want to say for the record, I don't believe Rex Heuermann is a cop. I don't believe he was a cop, but I believe that there is every reason to believe that Rex Heuermann is friends with cops. So did he get a fake badge? Did he borrow a badge? Who knows? It's something to pay attention to in the narrative that Rex Heuermann knows cops intimately well and is perhaps lying to this person and saying, yeah, I'm a cop myself in Brooklyn. I told the large man to just get out of my car and I would not press charges. The man who I subsequently took to the girl's boyfriend, the man who I subsequently took to be the girl's boyfriend, as told to me later on by the dispatcher, pulled into the house's driveway. So it sounds like while she's telling him this guy to get out of her car, somebody who she thinks is the girl's boyfriend that they're going to pick up some girl and drive her out into the woods, pulls into the driveway. I turned off the car. I said that I was not moving, that I was not going to drive from this spot. And I told him that he could have the keys and take the car and he could have the money or have my money. I asked him, would he speak to his mother that way? So the story is a little convoluted. I mean, it's like this affidavit is not the best affidavit to understand what's going on. But anyway, she's there. She doesn't like the way the guy's speaking to her. She's like, do you speak to your mother that way? He replied with an intense anger, my mother is dead. The dispatcher said to him, just walk away. So the dispatcher is telling her driver, get out of the car, walk away. The large man stepped out of the car, leaned into the front passenger window. The dispatcher told me that the large man asked the boyfriend and girl for a ride. So again, so he's here with the taxi driver, but now the boyfriend, I guess, shows up with the girl and he's asking them for a ride, to which one of them replied with the words to the effect of that, no, the cops are on their way. So everybody's pissed off about this guy who's bullying and intimidating and being rude. And they're like, look, we've called the cops. The large man then went into the nearby wooded area and shot his gun off a couple times, according to the dispatcher. So it sounds like, if this is a true story, Rex Heuermann gets pissed off, goes into the woods, and is angry. He's just bam, bam, shoots a couple of rounds off because he's pissed off at this whole situation. It's not going the way that he wanted things to go that night, is what I'm getting as a narrative in my mind on this. Now, I had already started the car, and I had already driven down the street when the large man did whatever the dispatcher told me that he did. Meaning, I guess that the driver didn't hear the gunshots. Maybe the dispatcher told them, hey, we heard him. I don't know. That part is confusing to me. Anyways, point 6. As I drove down the street, a Suffolk County police officer, wow, listen up. As I drove down the street, a Suffolk County police officer in a white and blue police car approached from the other direction with no headlights or siren. The officer had dark hair, appeared to be in his 30s in age. I told the police officer that the large man had pulled a gun. The officer told me that he was responding to a call that that the dispatcher had called in, and the girl was also had called in. I said to him the words to the effect of that he's one of yours. He had a badge he had a bad night and he pulled a gun. The officer's vehicle then crept down the street and passed my car. So it sounds like, as the driver's driving away, a police car, kind of incognito, lights off, sirens off, responding to multiple phone calls, perhaps from the dispatcher of the taxi company and from the woman in the house and her boyfriend or whatever, is arriving to investigate this whole thing, and is kind of doing so creeping along in the dark. All right. I drove away to other calls, so the taxi driver now leaves. I told my family members about this incident, including my nephew, who was a police officer, and I told my sister of the event described below. I also told other drivers of the event. So this person has recounted, retold, gave this story a bunch of times to other people. I also told other drivers of the event. Recently, I saw Rex Heuermann on TV. So this person's now going to make the connection. Oh my God, that's the guy I saw. Recently, I saw Rex Heuermann on TV. He was the large man that I encountered in the incident described above, and he was a large man I saw in the incident described below. I was afraid of him. I now know him to be Rex Heuermann. So they've told one event about Rex Heuermann, going to pick him up that night and how this all happened and how he got all freaky and was nasty and saying, I want to kill you and whatever. And now they're going to describe another incident with Rex Heuermann. So they told this one and they're like, hey, I saw Rex on TV. And I'm like, that's the guy. That's the guy that I had the encounter with that night. Here's another. In another incident, which preceded the one above. So this is an event that happened before that, even though we're telling it afterwards. All right. So in another incident which preceded the one above by at least several weeks, my dispatcher sent me to pick up a passenger at Sayville Motor Lodge on Sunrise Highway. I was told by my dispatcher that the prospective passenger had asked for a female driver and that she locked herself in a bathroom in a room in the motel. I drove behind the motel. I saw a dark, apparently greenish gray SUV on a side street near the motel. Now, this part right here may be Rex Heuermann's vehicle. I don't remember exactly now, but he had a very distinctive SUV. The fact that they're pointing out the color of the SUV makes me think that maybe that's part of the thing as well. So now we have an incident before that I recognized Rex Heuermann on TV, where she's picking somebody up who's locked herself in a bathroom. She's terrified of for some reason, locked herself in, having a driver come pick her up. It has to be a woman. She's afraid to be with men or whatever. And there's this greenish SUV on the side street near the hotel. I drove into the parking lot to the left. I looked for the correct room number. When I located it, I blew my car's horn and flashed my lights at the room. I did these things on and off for 7 to 8 minutes. No one had come out of the room. This is a very persistent driver. I mean, you got somebody who's terrified wanting to be picked up, and she's like, honk, honk, I'm out here, come out here. Then a very large man came out of the motel, came out of the car, not clear at this moment for me. Then a very large man came out. He appeared to have a bit of a belly. He ran to the side street. He tried to block his face with his arms. Now, I'm getting the impression that the man's running to the green SUV. So he's running out of the motel. The woman's locked inside the house. This is what I'm imagining happening, and I think it's how it happened. The woman is afraid of this big giant man, allegedly Rex Heuermann, who's inside the hotel with her. She's locked herself in a bathroom. She's called a driver. The driver shows up, honking, flashing his light, and then outruns Rex, hiding his face as he's trying to get to his car. Then a girl runs out. She was petite. She was crying and shaking. She entered my taxi. So after Rex allegedly runs out to his car, the woman comes running out after him and dives into the taxi car, right? She was petite, which is Rex Heuermann's MO. That's what the kind of girls that he's been attacking allegedly is small women who are sex workers. She was crying and shaking. She entered my taxi in the right rear seat. She said that we had to get away from there. I noticed that one of her eyes had something defective about it, that it appeared to droop. Her hair was pulled back neatly like a ballerina would have done. She wore jeans and a shirt. She was not dressed provocatively. She said that she was glad that she had gotten me as a driver because the girl wanted a female. The shocker is coming on this. The girl told me that she had met the large man on Craigslist. He befriended her, she said. She said that he had said to her that he would like to take care of her mom, her sisters, and her boyfriend. She said that he had placed a thick white envelope on the nightstand in the room. So it sounds like this particular person, and a shocker is coming on who it is, this particular person had befriended Rex Heuermann, a sex worker who had befriended Rex Heuermann, and Rex Heuermann allegedly, again, I'm saying Rex Heuermann because that's who she's saying is the same man in both incidents. Rex Heuermann is saying, as he's befriended her, hey, I want to take care of your family, and gave her a large, thick white envelope, a thick white envelope on a nightstand, as if he's giving her a large amount of money to take care of her family. She said that he told her that whatever happens tonight, this envelope was for her and her family. That's an odd thing. Whatever happens tonight, this is for you. You're taken care of. Your family's taken care of. But she said that she saw rage in his face. She said that when he went to the bathroom, she looked in the envelope, and she said that the envelope was filled with cut up paper. She said that he shook her and that he was aggravated. So in other words, it looks like she's like, something doesn't seem right. He goes to the bathroom. She checks to see, is that an envelope full of money taking care of me? No, it's a bunch of cut up paper. He's pretending like he's helping me and he's going to take care of me with a big fat wad of cash. And it's just cut up paper. Then he gets pissed off that she's double checked him by looking in the envelope. So he shakes her and he's aggravated. She said that he got aggressive. So she ran into the bathroom and she locked herself there, and he had banged on the door. So somehow they did a switcheroo. He came out of the bathroom, started shaking her. She runs to the same bathroom, locks herself in. The girl never told me her name. I believe the incident took place when it was still a little warm outside. The girl wore a little light jacket, a dark color. She had a pocketbook, which was not large. And she said that they were always calling her to come out to Long Island. They is the big thing. There's an allegation that Rex Heuermann is in a ring of people, including police officers who are engaged in prostitutes and call prostitutes out. So this is the reason why some believe that Shannon Gilbert, who went missing, who isn't like, we don't know, is Shannon Gilbert really one of Rex Heuermann's or not? The MO is not the same, but here's a story, an affidavit from somebody who's saying, look, Shannon Gilbert, because that's the big shocker. This is Shannon Gilbert. We're going to find out. Shannon Gilbert saying, hey, look, they used to call me. Rex Heuermann and other people would call me out to Long Island. She said that they were always calling her to come out to Long Island. She said that they did not want to come, or she said that she did not want to come to Long Island. She told me about her family, including her sisters and her mother. We do know Shannon has sisters and a mother. So like a lot of people have a mother. But anyways, point being is that is all consistent. She said that as to her mother, I would not be able to understand her situation with her mother. As a mother, she would not be able to understand her situation with a mother. Much of our conversation took place at Sayville Motor Lodge or at Ronkonkoma train station. Again, probably slaughtering that. She had a long wait in order to take the 2 a.m. train into New York City. She had a distinctive voice. She was articulate. She paid for the ride and tipped me $5. She then sat with another taxi driver in his car waiting for the train because I had to pick up other customers. I saw her on TV where she was identified as Shannon Gilbert. There's the big shock. Shannon Gilbert is the one who's saying, look, I knew Rex Heuermann. Rex Heuermann and they, a group of people. Remember, when Shannon Gilbert goes missing, if you know the story, Shannon Gilbert says, they're trying to kill me. They are trying to kill me. So the story is that Shannon Gilbert went out to see a John by the name of John Brewer. Is that his name? Shit, I better get that name right. She had gone out to see a John that day. She was driven by a driver named Michael Pack, right? And so the story was it was one guy, a brewer, that was supposedly she was going to see. But when she called into 911, terrified for her life, she said, they are trying to kill me. Here in this affidavit from somebody, they're saying that Shannon said, hey, they call me out to Long Island on a regular basis. This is a thing they do. And Rex Heuermann is the guy who allegedly was there that night, according to this affidavit. Her story told me her family matched that of the family Shannon Gilbert. So her story, she told me of her family matched the family of Shannon Gilbert. Rex Heuermann appeared to be the very big man that I saw coming from the motel I mentioned in my affidavit. I recognized Shannon Gilbert. I told my dispatcher of this incident. I also told the female manager at Sayville Motor Lodge of this incident. The manager appeared to be of a native of India. I told other taxi drivers of this incident. The dispatcher had the telephone number of the large man, so they had Rex Heuermann's number. I called the police tip line when Rex Heuermann was arrested, and I spoke with a young woman and told her the basic facts, which I knew. Spoke twice with the tip line that day, and I've never received a return phone call. So she called the police when Rex Heuermann was identified and says, hey, I've had this run-in with this guy. The police weren't interested. It sounds like we're not interested in talking to this person. So John Ray took this affidavit. Hey, I'll listen to you. The police won't listen to you. I'll listen to you. That should be your tip number one. So there we are. There's the notary's signature, the dated the 20th of September. It looks like it's what would be the seal of a notary public, Dipin Patel, or Dipan Patel. Sorry if I slaughtered that name. So there you go. That's the affidavit, the first one. Now let's jump to the next one. It gets a little hairier now. Affidavit, a new one. To John Ray again. State of New York, county of, why the state was redacted last time, or the counties was redacted still. This person's name redacted, residing at a confidential address, being duly sworn, state as follows. I'm over 18 years of age. I reside in the state of New York. I'm of sound mind and memory. I have come forward to state facts, which I personally know to be true. I have stated these facts to John Ray Esquire in this affidavit. I've asked John Ray to prepare this affidavit to reflect my words and knowledge. This affidavit contains my words and knowledge. By the way, in case you're wondering, is John Ray just making this shit up? No. Again, the story is Suffolk County Police Department don't want to investigate. They don't want to do the investigation. When these people call into the tip lines or try to talk to police, they're not interested. So they go to a guy on TV who's like, I want to know exactly what's going on, and I suspect there's corruption in Suffolk County Police Department. Come forward with your stories, and I will take your sworn testimony. I'll take your affidavit, and I might put pressure on people to do the right thing and investigate this. And so that's why they come to John Ray, in my opinion. I've asked John Ray to prepare this affidavit to reflect my words and knowledge. This affidavit contains my words and my knowledge. I've determined to come forward with facts within my knowledge because I wish the truth to be known about Rex Heuermann and others, including his wife, Asa, and a woman I believe to have been Karen Varetta. She's going to be a victim who ends up discovered dead and a victim of Rex Heuermann's, we believe. And so listen to this story about this person's encounter with Rex Heuermann, a police officer, and Karen Varetta. I believe that great harm came to that woman, and I believe to have been, I believe that great harm came to that woman. I believe to have been Karen Varetta when she was at the Heuermann home in Massapequa Park, New York, in and or about Valentine's Day of 1996. I feel a heavy responsibility as to her. That is why I've contacted John Ray. Here we go. John Ray, police officers, 1996 era. Later on, they will try to cover up any involvement Rex Heuermann may have with the police department, is what it looks like to me. But I'm an untrained person. I'm a former swinger, this person says. I'm a former swinger. I am 54 years old at the time of this affidavit, which I believe is in 2023. A swinger is a person who partners with another person. So again, this 30 years ago, they would have been in their 20s, it looks like. So at the time that this affidavit, this is about a story that happened when they were in their 20s. They're now in their 50s, right? So I'm a former swinger. I'm 54 years old. A swinger is a person who partners with another person. Then that partnership has sex with other partners or groups of partners. I formed a partnership with an NYPD policeman in or about 1996. So this woman is a swinger. She probably has a male partner. She does. And they swing with other couples, including New York NYPD policemen in around 1996. Now, again, nothing inherently illegal about being swingers. That's not the point. Nothing inherently illegal about being swingers. Adults can do what they want to do. There's not money being exchanged. This isn't a prostitution thing. It's people saying, hey, I like to have sex with other people. How about we trade partners for the night? It's just swinging. It's not illegal. His name is known to me and to Mr. Ray, but I will call him RW. So in other words, they're not saying the name of the officer, but Mr. Ray knows the exact name of the officer. This person, of course, knows the exact name of the officer, but in the affidavit, they're just going to call him RW. He had been a police officer assigned to Prospect Park in Brooklyn. So again, you have later in a different person's affidavit, Rex Heuermann wearing a badge that he says, hey, I'm a Brooklyn police officer. So keep this in mind. He became a detective. He was handsome. I loved that man. We became partner members of a swingers club known as the Trapeze. So there's a swingers club, and this cop is somebody that this woman had a romantic feelings for, or a relationship type of feeling, loves that man, whether she means figuratively or literally. Point being is that he's a good looking cop. She likes him. She trusts him. I believe it was in lower midtown Manhattan. Sex amongst partners there at the Trapeze Club was common and encouraged, including on the premises. People would have sex at the swingers club. That's not terribly uncommon. I believe that as many as 300 members and their partners could be there at any time. So it's a pretty busy sex club. And again, not illegal per se for consenting adults to just trade partners. I and RW, so her and this cop, went to the Trapeze several times and engaged in sex with other couples there several times. I saw others having sex there as well. Sex took place in rooms and in a big room as well. So there's side rooms people can go have sex with, or there's a big room where people can have sex and other people can watch. It's a thing. Several members were police officers. Several members of the sex club are police officers. I'm not making a big deal of it because it's illegal. I'm making a big deal of it because of who Rex Heuermann knows, which is a bunch of police officers, including having cops who are swingers into exchanging partners with him and his wife who are swingers. This is how some of these cops know him. One of the ways that cops know Rex Heuermann. Several members were from Long Island. Members were enabled to post messages and contact information on a wall. Either Rex Heuermann or his wife Asa posted contact information for them in a house in Massapequa Park to engage there in swinger sex in 1996. So there's a bulletin board, message board at the sex club for places you can go to have sex with other swingers. Rex Heuermann and his wife Asa had posted on that message board their address in Massapequa Park as a place where you can go have swinger sex in 1996. This person giving the affidavit, and the police officer, RW, chose to go there to the Heuermann home on February 1996. The question becomes, did this cop already know Heuermann? Did they already know Heuermann? That's unclear. Or whether they just found a message and said, hey, here's a place we can go have sex. Let's go have sex at this party house with swingers. That's unclear. RW picked up a woman, I believe to be Karen Varetta, in New York City on the way to Heuermann's house. This part gets creepy. RW, the police officer, picks up a woman I believe to be Karen Varetta in New York City on the way to Heuermann's house. She was hungry and homeless. So a police officer stops and picks up a homeless girl and takes them with her to a swingers party. This is where it gets creepy. This is where you get the allegations that police officers are literally bringing victims to Rex Heuermann to be murdered potentially. I'm going to put that narrative on there. It's not necessarily what this affidavit is saying. What I'm saying is you've got a police officer literally picking up a homeless person and taking this random homeless person to a sex party where she will maybe be the last time anybody sees her alive. So she was hungry and homeless. She sat in the back of the car. She leaned forward and to the right. When we stopped for gas, and I'm presuming RW gets out of the car and this woman's left alone with this other woman, she said that she was scared. So it looks like the police officer gets out of the car to fill up gas, and this girl in the back seat is afraid. I'm scared. I told her not to be scared because RW is a cop. She couldn't be safer than being with a cop. Oh my God. How horrible if your cops are involved with serial killers. Anyways, I told her to ask at the house when they arrived to take a shower and for some food. Hey, look, you're homeless, you're dirty. When you get there, ask them for some food and take a shower, clean yourself up, and then we'll bang you. All right. Anyways, we entered the Heuermann home by walking around the side of it. It was in the night. Inside the house in Massapequa Park, it was dark. Karen went downstairs. There's a downstairs to this house, and I stayed up. Now, again, in Heuermann's house, allegedly, the downstairs area had the kill room. It is where Rex Heuermann allegedly killed women in the basement of the house. So in this story, this woman goes to the basement / downstairs area of the house where allegedly Rex Heuermann would kill women in the basement of his house. And Asa is here, by the way. So the story is that Asa, his wife, had no idea that women were being killed in the house. This is the reason why people like John Ray will say on the interview that I had with him, there's no way that family doesn't know what was going on. I suspect the family knows damn what was going on. They were swingers. They had women to their house. Women went down to the basement where the kill room was at. I'm interjecting a lot of extra things that John didn't specifically say, but he came very, very close to saying that same thing. There's no way this family doesn't know, in my opinion. They know what's going on. It's a tiny tiny house. They had people over. They were swingers. Do the math. I'm adding a little bit of extra, so don't quote me as word for word. I'm being extra cautious because I'm talking about a lawyer and I don't want to get my ass sued. So, fortunately, John and I are on good terms right now. Let's fucking keep it that way. Pardon my French. But anyways, let's keep it that way. Anyways, I stayed upstairs with Asa, my partner, who I believe they wrote I believe in as an afterthought because I guess grammatically it wasn't so good. My partner, who was bisexual, and then they added on I believe they were bisexual, kept disappearing. I believe that so this woman had a boyfriend with the cop. So she has the cop and she has a boyfriend with her. So that part was new. I didn't know there was a boyfriend with her at the time. But my partner, who I believe was bisexual, kept disappearing. I believed he was elsewhere in the house having sex with Rex because he's bisexual. So her boyfriend, a male, is having sex with Rex Heuermann, a male, is the story that I'm getting. I believe that now this is part what's weird. I believe I had sex with Rex as well. You believe or you know? Did you or didn't you not? Now, was there drugs involved? Is our memory not clear? It's weird that this person who's giving this affidavit says, I believe I had sex with Rex as well. I never went downstairs. I don't know how you don't know whether he had sex with Rex, but and so take it for a grain of salt. Asa told me, and I don't know if it's Asa or Asa. I'm going to pronounce it Asa. I don't know. Asa told me words to the effect that Rex brought her from her country and that everything she had he had given to her. So Asa comes from like Sweden or Norway or something like that. She comes from another country. She's telling this person giving the affidavit that Rex, her husband, had brought her from her own country and everything she has had been given to her by her husband Rex. She said that she was lucky that he was rich. She said she was also afraid of Rex. So his own wife, Asa, is afraid of Rex Heuermann, according to this affidavit. I do not know if she was truthful or not. I don't think that I ever went downstairs. Again, does this person not know whether they went downstairs? Does the person not know where they had sex? There may be lots of reasons. There may be lots of reasons for the foggy memory. Again, if drugs are involved, your memory of something that happened 30 years ago when you were on drugs, it may be sketchy. Therefore, one also has to take the entire affidavit with a grain of salt. It's not super clear what they remember and what they don't remember, but the details still are interesting enough that we're going to spend some time on it. I went back towards the back of the house asking RW, that's the cop, where are you? He came out from the back and what seemed like from a room. This is where it gets fucking crazy. Pardon my French. I told you guys I would stop saying the F word so much. I'm not so great at it. I will try to tone that down a little bit. I went towards the back of the house asking RW, where are you? He came out from the back, what seemed like from a room. I also saw a Christmas tree on the main floor, yet it was long past Christmas. I wondered why there was still a Christmas tree up. I believe RW and I were there at the Heuermann home on or about Valentine's Day. So we're in February, but the Christmas tree is still up. I believe that because RW and I would swing on holidays like Christmas and Valentine's Day and Halloween and other such holidays, I also saw, so in other words, they're saying, I think it was Valentine's Day because it was a common thing for her and this cop to swing on holidays. So she thinks it was Valentine's Day because it was normal for them to do their swinging on holidays. I believe that because RW and I would swing on holidays like Christmas, Valentine's Day, and Halloween and other such holidays, I also saw 2 large seashells on a shelf in the house. I recall thinking that they were like shells from the country where I had grown up. Country's name is known to Mr. Ray. So we're not getting any identification of where that is, but this person giving this testimony notices some seashells that reminds her of where she grew up, but she's not saying in this affidavit where that is. I asked Asa if she had friends from my country. So do they come from the same country or somewhere near the same country? Because she recognizes the seashells that Asa has. It sounds like it's something from the same general area. And so she's saying, do you have friends from my country? I do not remember what she replied. I had also asked Asa if she wished me to perform sex upon her, but she said that she didn't wish that. So this woman, who apparently also is bisexual, I guess in some regards, is willing to have sex with Asa and basically says, you want me to go down on you, whatever the case may be. Sorry to be blunt. And Asa's like, no, I'm not interested. I recall that Rex went outside and started a fire in what appears to be a large barrel. RW, the police officer, wished to leave at this point. I went with him to his car. We left from the back door. RW then complained that he lost his belt. This is weird because, again, certain people were found tied with a belt There was a belt at one of the crime scenes of the individuals. And so here the cop goes in and he's missing his belt all of a sudden. Did he just get undressed and leave the belt there? Was the belt used to tie up a woman? Because that seems to be the MO of some of the people who may have been murdered. So it's another one of those things to keep in mind. So this officer says, I lost my belt. He went back into the house to retrieve it. I saw the face of the woman I believe to be Karen. This is Karen Varetta, that the woman that they picked up, the homeless woman, and brought here to that night. I saw the face of the woman I believe to be Karen up against a window of the house. She looked scared. I had a sense that she was calling for help. So she sees her on the window like, help me, I need to get out of here. I told RW of this. So when the cop comes back out, I'm like, hey, that woman, the woman I believe to be Karen, suddenly ran outside naked and ran around by the garage. RW had gone to the back of the house to look for his belt, but he was then back in the car. RW told me not to worry about her, that she was okay. They were just playing a game, and he left without her. I felt uneasy that we left without the woman. That shit super effing weird. Police officer picks up a supposedly random homeless woman in New York, brings her out here. She's terrified and wants to and is trying to signal for help, runs out of the house in a panic naked. And the police officer who brought her says, oh, don't worry about her, we're just playing a game, and leaves the woman they picked up in New York with the killer. We will later find out she's dead. This may be the last time anybody saw her. I saw Rex on TV recently in a picture of Karen Varetta, right? Because Karen Varetta is dead. I recognized her as the woman who RW and I brought to Heuermann's home. I was shocked and deeply sorrowful for having left her behind at Heuermann's house. I told John Ray of these things because I needed to speak with him so that Karen would not be left behind again. So there you go. Signed again and dated by a notary, John Ray's stamp on it. I think this is legit. We're going to finish up with the last, more even shocking and more detailed, longer to get through story of and a pseudonymous name, Alice Poe. This is a longer, more detailed, difficult story. Hopefully we can get it done in 20 minutes. Let's just hit it right now. Again, this one isn't signed and dated, and it's a cleaner copy. It doesn't have the squiggle marks and scan marks. This is a cleaner copy. I have every reason to believe this is the actual affidavit. I remember seeing the documentary where this story was told. It is almost verbatim, but has a lot more details here because, again, in the documentary, they're cutting to the chase and the juicy parts. So there's going to be extra pieces in here. I have every reason to believe this is a legitimate documentary. Again, pay attention to the police officers. That's what we're focusing on today. Alice Poe, being duly sworn, deposes and says, Alice Poe is my pseudonym. I am using a pseudonym for my safety. I've given an affidavit containing my real name and identity to John Ray Esq. Along with this affidavit, I am over 18 and I reside in Nassau County in New York. I graduated high school in 1994. I was living at the Budget Inn on Montauk Highway in Patchogue, Suffolk County, New York, the year before I graduated from high school as a 16-year-old runaway. So when this event she's talking about is when she was 16, she had run away from home. She was living in a Budget Inn hotel kind of thing on Montauk Highway. 2 doors down from me lived a blonde woman with her baby. The blonde woman was a sex worker. We became friends. I had moved to a smaller room at the end of the motel. She had a child, age 7 or less. The child was clingy. My room was very small. The sex worker would stand outside of my door with her daughter sitting on my bed, and we would talk. I walked with the woman to take her daughter to school. The woman asked me at the time to later hang out with her friends in a room at the motel, and I agreed, but I didn't show up. So she agreed to hang out with her, this sex worker and her friends, but then didn't show up. About 1 to 2 days later, the blonde woman left the motel suddenly, leaving her child behind and not returning for about 24 hours. So she just abandons her kid with this underage runaway. So I was very worried, she said. And when she returned, she asked me to hang out with her and her friends at the Budget Inn on Friday night and day, and urged me to keep my word to show up. Because last time you stiffed me, so I want you to show up this time. Are you going to show up this time? We've got a party going on. I want you to meet my friends. Are you going to show up? You stiffed me last time. That's the story I'm getting. She did not mention why she left her daughter with me for so long or where she was. On Friday morning, she came to my room and she asked me if I was still going to go hang out that night. I said yes. So it sounds like this person, this sex worker, is wanting to lure this 16-year-old girl into a party where very, very, very suspicious human beings will be at that party. Cutting to the chase, police officers and Rex Heuermann. She told me that she was going to wash clothes at noon and asked me if I wanted to accompany her. I went to her room at noon. She said she was no longer going to the laundromat and asked me if I was really going to show up that night. She's really insistent. Are you going to show up or not tonight? Because people at that party want this 16-year-old there. She walked, and that should tell you something. She walked into her room and picked up the phone, which was on the bed, and I realized that she was on a call. I began to walk back to my room, and she yelled out the door, asking if I was sure I was coming that night. Like, she's really insistent. Are you coming tonight? This is very important. This person is very, very adamant that they want this young girl at the party. She's being, in my opinion, being lured into that party for very, very horrible things. Fortunately for us, she got away. Let's continue on. I agreed to go and did so. So she agreed that she was going to the party that night, and she did. At about 7:30 p.m. that Friday, the blonde woman came to my room, and I accompanied her to the room where her friends were. I thought we were going to her room and inquired where we were going when we passed it, and she said her daughter was in bed watching TV, and we couldn't hang out there. So I want you to meet all my friends. We can't do it in front of my daughter, so I'm going to leave my daughter in my room. We're going to go to another room. You're going to hang out with me and my friends tonight. Wink, wink. Here we go. The room where her friends were was not one of the motel's guest rooms. The room where her friends were was not one of the motel's guest rooms. It was L-shaped. Does that mean it's management's room? I'm not even sure what that means exactly. Anyways, the room where the friends were was not one of the motel's guest rooms. The room was L-shaped with 2 beds, no dresser, a little alcove type area for a TV, and small white microwave oven in an odd position. The room was occupied by several men and the blonde girl. That's the one that kind of lured her to this place. One white man with blonde hair sat in a chair and seemed to be wasted. The group was drinking beer. There was a short man who appeared to be the boyfriend of the blonde woman. So the woman that lured her in, that's her boyfriend, I guess, is the short man. According to this person, seemed to be her boyfriend. There was another man with brown hair past his ears, an older man with a gray suit and a shorter black man. And there was one other white man who was there. He was the life of the party, talking to everyone. He tried to convince me to get mad at my boyfriend who was not there. That's odd. Trying to convince her to get mad at her boyfriend who wasn't even there. This boisterous person was James Burke, soon to be, well, not necessarily soon, later to become chief of police of Suffolk County. At this point, a cop. Later promoted to chief of police, who would thwart the investigation into Rex Heuermann. And here comes an affidavit of James Burke, a cop, partying with drugs and other people, and Rex Heuermann, the serial killer, who he wants to dismantle the task force looking into Rex Heuermann. And again, let me point out what's the $1 million problem with this whole scenario. The reason police don't want to investigate this is that case against Rex Heuermann is going to have nothing to do with police. No one is ever, in the police department, no one is ever going to look into or ask questions about Rex Heuermann knowing all the police department, or knowing officers, or partying with them, or swinging with them, or doing drugs with them. It's never going to come up. They're going to tell you in a court of law that is irrelevant. Who he knew and partied with and had sex with and whatever doesn't make a damn bit of difference, even if it was cops literally looking the other way instead of looking for the serial killer, because they're in bed literally and figuratively with the serial killer. And so those questions will never get asked. You know who does get to ask those kind of questions? John Ray. John Ray gets to ask those kind of questions because nobody else will ask those questions. So people will come forward and they're like, look, I want to tell you that police department's corrupt. They know about Rex Heuermann. They've known about Rex Heuermann. They're shutting their mouth about Rex Heuermann. But that trial will never be about the police officers. Never. And you'll be told you're a conspiracy theorist if you bring up the idea that police officers are involved, despite the fact that we have 3 affidavits from different individuals saying that Rex Heuermann partied with the cops, knew the cops, and did things with prostitutes with the cops, and were the last people seen with people who are dead. There was another man. Okay, so the boisterous one was here we go. The boisterous one. This boisterous person was James Burke. I was told by someone at the party that he was a cop, and that another one of the men was a cop. So there's 2 cops at the place, one of which is James Burke. I have seen pictures of James Burke when he was a cop, and I could identify him from those pictures. I am certain that this was the talkative man at the party, was James Burke. So this person giving this affidavit says, I've seen James Burke. I've seen him in his uniform. I recognize him. That is James Burke. I was at a hotel partying with this guy when I was 16. James Burke, the cop, was there, and there was another cop there that night. James Burke was not smoking crack at the party, but shared crack with others in that room. He had the crack in a pipe, and he was giving hits from the pipe to others in the room. So here's a cop passing around a pipe with crack in it, telling people to take hits. Is that illegal? Hell yeah, it's illegal. Whether he took the hit off the pipe or not, that shit's illegal. So let's take that as a grain of salt. So The older white man and black man did not take any hits, nor did I. I noticed that the persons taking hits would line up one behind the other in front of Burke, like he's the king. They're all lining up for a hit, and Burke's going to hand, here, suck on this. Here, suck on this. Suck on this. Anyways, so they're lining up in front of Burke, whereupon he would give a hit of his pipe to each of them in turn, as if in a ritual. I did not get in line. Burke approached me as I sat in the bed. He put the pipe in my face and lit it and said, come on, come on. When I refused it, his persuasive personality suddenly changed and it became hostile and urged, come on. He wore a dark, short-sleeved shirt tucked into his pants with a gold chain on his neck. I did not take a hit of the pipe. So Burke, the charismatic cop, swagger kind of guy, is, getting more aggressive. Frickin' take a hit of the pipe. The short white man, who appeared to have been the boyfriend of the blonde woman, left but came back. When he came back, he opened the door and began to walk inside the room with a large man behind him. Pay attention. Burke saw them at the doorway, whereupon Burke expressed anger by making a sound. He quickly took the other men, except the black man and the older white man, to the door, whereupon the large man and the short white man stepped back outside. All the men stood by the door and began to whisper to one another. I believe this large man is going to be Rex Heuermann, who showed up. Big ogreish man shows up, large man. James Burke has got a little bit of a problem with Rex Heuermann showing up. That's interesting. So they go out and they have a little conference. Then the short white man came inside of the room, leaving the large man outside, and closed the door. I could see the owner of the motel standing outside before the door was closed. So the owner knows what's going on. The owner probably knows there's cops there. The owner probably knows a hell of a lot more than the owner wants to say. The men went into the alcove where they whispered to each other and took out money from their wallets. What's being paid for right now? Is it the 16-year-old in the apartment? Is she being bartered over unbeknownst to her? Who's getting paid for? Or is it a drug deal? What's going on? I just made that complete speculation. I'm just asking. Curious minds wants to know what's going on with the money. The other men handed their money to the short white man, and they all went out the door and left the room, leaving the door open. I went outside. It was almost dark. The men were gathered by a fancy car for about 15 minutes. The short white man and his girlfriend stood in the corner of the motel talking. We went back into the room. The short white man and his girlfriend did not come back into the motel. I was anxious because then I was the only woman in the room. So money's exchanged hands, and now all of a sudden, young girl is left alone in a party full of men doing drugs and trying to push her to do things in a room full of men, and now she gets nervous. I'm alone with all these men. Everybody else is gone. I'm the only female here. I decided to go look for the woman who brought her here and began to walk towards the door. Burke and the white man from the brown hair, with the brown hair past his ears, quickly ran to the door and blocked it. So they're not letting this young woman leave the room. That's scary as shit. They asked me where I was going, and I said I was going to go look for the woman that brought her there. They said that she was fine and had gone back to her room with the short white man. Hey, she's going back to her room with her boyfriend. Relax. I expressed concern about her daughter being in the room watching TV. Burke and the other men began to laugh. Burke told me to leave the woman alone, and I went back to the bed and sat down. What is she going to do? She's surrounded by guys she's young, and she's trapped in a room. So she sits back down. She's trapped. The wasted white man was in front of me, sitting backwards in the chair, and appeared to be sleeping. His head hung over the back of the chair. Burke stood over the man and tapped his arm. He didn't move. Burke tapped him a few more times. The man picked up his head and spoke incoherently. Burke told him to get up. When the man kept mumbling incoherently, Burke then raised his voice, cursed at the man to get up, and the man still did not get up. Burke then grabbed the man's left arm. The man got up. That man, the man with the brown hair, and Burke began to walk towards the alcove area. I turned around to see where the black man was standing, and he gave me a very compassionate look. That's scary as hell. It's like the guy saying, oh shit, man, you are in deep shit. That's the impression I get. This man looks at her and says, oh my God, I wish I could help you right now. You're in deep, deep shit. That's what I get. I don't know if that's what's happening. I read things into things. I imagine. I try to put myself at the scene, and that's what I'm thinking. This guy's looking at her like, you're in trouble. I began to feel frightened, as I would expect, and tried to think of a way to get out of that room that wouldn't appear like I was attempting to leave permanently. So she's got her wits about her. And she says, I approached the man with brown hair and I asked if I could go have a cigarette and if he would come outside with me to smoke it. Brilliant move on this person's part. She doesn't want them thinking, I'm going to try to bolt for the thing. Hey, I'm going to go outside and smoke. I'll be right back. It's like, hey, come out with me. She's bright enough at 16 to realize I got to get myself away from as many as possible. And I'll do so as, hey, you can follow me out the door. This is what I'm interpreting as a brilliant move. I planned to tell them I was going to go to my room for my own cigarettes once outside. So once she got separated from the rest of the men and it was going to be her and one man, she'd tell that man, hey, I'm just going to go to my room real quick. And that way she doesn't have a whole bunch of people questioning like, hey, don't let her go off by herself. Smart. So I planned to tell him I'm going to go away to my room for my own cigarettes once outside because I didn't like his brand. He agreed and we went outside. When we went outside, the large man was there leaning against the motel wall in such a way that his legs were at a 45-degree angle and his back against the wall. I therefore could not yet see how big he was, and it was dark in this area where there was not a motel guest room. He wore a flannel shirt. He was pleasant to me. He seemed nerdy to me. I had begun to relax. After a few minutes, the other man went back into the room. The men seemed so different to me, so I thought some of them were from out of town and met at the hotel. I asked the man where he was from. He told me they were friends from Long Island and liked to party. Now, again, remember, Shannon Gilbert, according to the previous statement, was saying, hey, they like to bring me out to Long Island to party with them. So he, now Rex Heuermann, is with this woman and saying, oh, yeah, we're just a group of friends. We like to come out to Long Island to party. Cops partying with Rex Heuermann. He told me that when they wanted to hang out, the men would tell their wives that they had to take a trip for business purposes. He said that he wasn't married anymore, and he said that he owned a car dealership. I made a light, sarcastic joke that a car dealer should not need to go on any business trips, and he did not laugh. His demeanor changed. So in other words, Rex, according to the story of This is Rex Heuermann, is pissed off because she's not buying his bullshit. So you're a car dealer and you tell your wife you're on business trips. What does a car dealer need to do with business trips? And he gets pissed off because she's calling him on his bullshit. He said words to the effect that he was going on a business trip to Arizona the next week to pick up a car. He began to look at me like he was angry. I told him I was going to go to my room to get my cigarettes and began to walk past him. He quickly stood up from his leaning position and encircled me with his arm, urging me towards the door of the motel. He was now standing very close in front of me, and I looked up at him. I could see that he was huge. I exclaimed, my God, he was tall. I could see that he was pleased at my shock. Rex Heuermann is a huge man. I tried to joke, but he remained serious. I did not want to go back in that hotel room. So he's trying to shovel her back into the room with all the men. She's trying to get away. I backed up from the door and noticed the car the men were interested in earlier was parked close by. I faked interest in the car. This woman has street smarts. At 16, she's got street smarts. She's already managed to separate herself from a group of men. Now she's with this massive ogre who wants to get her back in the room of men. And she's like, man, you guys got a great car. And starts talking about the car. I faked interest in the car and asked him to show it to me. When he brought me to the car, we were in the light and I could see him clearly. His size, face, demeanor, and attitude deeply scared me. He no longer spoke nicely to me. I told him that if he would wait, I just needed to get my own cigarettes. I told him that I was scared because my room was far and in the dark area of the motel. I asked him to watch me and wait for me to return to keep him from suspecting that I was trying to get away, and he let me go. My gosh, this woman is on it at 16, street savvy. She's like, hey, look, you can watch me the whole way. Brilliant. I began to walk to my room. My heart began to race. My room was far away. And as I got closer, my legs started to feel weak and I could hear my heart beating hard and fast. Now she's putting some distance between him and she's having to make a decision point. I tried not to cry and keep walking. My legs felt so weak that I feared I might fall down. When I got back to my room, I was sweating profusely and started sobbing like a baby. She's terrified. She's realizing she's on the verge of something horrible, horrible, horrible happening. Someone knocked twice on my door. So she's got into her door, she's closed it, and now someone's knocking on her door, probably Rex Heuermann. I didn't answer. This was the end of the incident. I am certain that the huge man was Rex Heuermann. When I saw him on TV after he was arrested, I immediately recognized him as the man that I had described above. I'm giving this affidavit to John Ray because I trust him. I do not trust the Suffolk County Police Department. I provided this affidavit because I believe that the truth, which I believe can help the case of the victims of Long Island serial killer. John Ray has drafted the words in this affidavit. The words in this affidavit accurately reflect the state of events as I described herein. I adopt these words as my own. I am not under the influence of drugs. alcohol, or any other mind-altering substances. I openly, knowingly, and voluntarily sign this affidavit. I am not under coercion, overreaching, or under the influence of anyone, including John Ray, to sign the affidavit. I have read this affidavit in its entirety, and I swear that the statements are true. So there you have it, folks. What do you do when the police officers themselves are accused of partying with a serial killer, bringing girls in from New York, homeless women from New York, to a serial killer's house, into the basement where she's terrified and runs out of the house butt naked, trying to get away, and cops just laugh it off? Hey, they're just playing a game. Don't worry about it. And she later ends up dead. These cops are hiding shit. And you can say, okay, well, enough time has gone by. Maybe these cops still aren't on the force. Maybe James Burke, by the way, who later became the chief of police and then went to jail, got out and then got arrested again for more sex shit because James Burke can't keep that shit straight. These cops are crooked. How many are there of them? How many people are friends with the crooked cops who themselves might not have gone as far as James Burke or other crooked cops, but aren't going to turn on crooked cops because of the blue wall of silence or whatnot? The point being is that there is corruption afoot. John Ray says that there is something very, very wrong in Suffolk County. Those are words from John Ray on my interview that if you haven't seen, you need to go watch that. Watch the interview with John Ray. There is something very, very wrong in Suffolk County. And this is the same police department today that it was back in. Make no mistake, this needs to be dug into further. Thanks for listening. I hope that you're intrigued and interested and listening.